Yeah, yes, do it. Yep. Michelangelo is my favorite
Swap seats?
Don't do that to my that is a fine
Oh, I guess James is going to do it. Get it? Just try it. James, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to the 19th ordinary meeting of the 174th session of the Literary and Scientific Society of Queen's University Belfast. Seeing a lot of new faces here tonight, probably because it's a science debate, which we do all the time and never skip. So we're all going to learn a lot of new things tonight because it's about nuclear energy. Personally, I know absolutely nothing about it, so I'm interested to learn something new tonight. We're going to move on now to council announcements. So if anybody on council has anything that they want to announce, please stand up and do now.
I'm Gerald, the environment leader, so I have to get you all down to the debate. And I think we have one spot on this section for the Reformation. So if you think Protestantism is a bad idea, you can say up for that. Let's actually go through what the debate's about. So then next week we have the document tournament, which is our competition every year for best speaker. It is 15 minutes after the debate, 15 minutes with the motion. You can sign up for that if you come see me after the debate and Paul, or just drop me a text. You're putting teams of two, so if you've got two people that want to sign up and debate together, it's always great fun, and we'll hopefully get as much practice beforehand as possible.
Any other council announcements?
Hello, I am Rory McSparn. I am the training officer. There will be a BP, a British Parliamentary / training session, probably on Monday at 7 p.m. Check the social media to get the exact room and the actual time. If it's not 7 p.m, it's earlier or later, but yeah, just let us know.
Jack Sands, excellent leader. The Queen's Day is coming up, and we still have yet to get a few spaces opened up for the crash system. We need people maybe to open up their houses just for a few DCU contestants to come up and be able to say the 18th and 19th of March, just to sort of facilitate that. And if any of you are interested in actually coming across their place, meet in the pub afterwards or after the debate, or maybe keep on the debate under one of the council members.
You're in the big department, aren't you?
Yes, Will.
Ryan Hoey, the social officer. So on Monday the 27th of March we have our annual formal in the Ulster Reform Club, and the tickets are £30 for members and £35 for non-members, which is quite competitive compared to like Lockstock's formal. So yeah, to sign up for that, there's the event page which has the link to sign up, and also I've messaged around lots of you asking you to come. So just sign up on that form. I think payments are due around mid-March. So if you're interested, sign up on the form. What will be a very fun and alcohol-filled evening.
Yeah. I think that's all the council announcements. So with that, I invite James Orchin, HLM, up to read the minutes of last debate.
Sort of just a note before I begin, in light of the fact that the minutes are often frivolous and tongue-in-cheek in tone, I just want to make this point before we begin. During last week's debate, a point of order was raised regarding the minutes that had just been read, noting the absence of an item of private members' business of the prior week. This had been included when the minutes were initially read, but had been removed due to the fact that an allegation of anti-Semitism was still being examined by the Council in light of the presence of school children. This was the wrong course of action, and I, as Secretary, have amended the prior minutes from last week to include prior mention of what had occurred, and that can be found online or at request if you wish to see. On the 23rd of February 2023, the Queen's University Belfast Literary and Scientific Society convened for the 18th ordinary meeting of the 174th session to discuss the motion. This House believes that Thatcher saved the economy. In a little bit of history lesson, in 1332, the Arab economist Ibn Khaldun was born. Let me explain. His arguments in favour of free market economics largely influenced what would become the new right in the 1980s, and Reagan cited him as a major influence. Just think that this guy's parents, when they were getting frisky a year earlier in Tunis, were directly responsible for the car crash that was last week's debate. The debate was held for school children from Newry. A bit of an oxymoron, I suppose, but as a result, society members were obviously able to refrain from sex references, swear words, and mentions of mice being murdered with bits of wood.
That was not me.
Well, okay. As usual, the meeting began with announcements. Each of the new council members introduced themselves and explained what the rules were in detail, such as the external officer does things externally. Wow, that's really informative, isn't it? No. All bar Ryan, Hoey HLM informed everyone of the conversazione. That's one society formula you should go to. Following the reading of the minutes, the meeting proceeded to private members' business. Dermot Hamill raised the question of the psyche of Irish Free Staters. Responses were heard from Jacqueline Bonner and President Emeritus Daniel McCormick, who, to be fair, can't really be called a Free Stater because, Donegal is rightfully Northern Irish territory. Barnley raised. It's just a matter of fact. Noel Barnley raised Keir Starmer's 5-point plan and was disappointed. Responses were heard from Keir Swale, Tom Burns, Ryan Hoey, Sam Hazlitt, Noel Barnley, and Dermot Hamlin. He proposed his own 5-point plan. Bertie to become president, protect the rats of Donnybrook, Londonderry to Coleraine. I don't know what that's in reference to. All I know is that's what it. And ban nationalists from the society, which was, of course, a tongue-in-cheek remark. And if you want to, I mean, all right. And then he also proposed something else. I couldn't actually remember what the 5th item was. That's a bit. Yeah. If that's what the former president's into, then I really. Anyways, Keir Swale raised the issue of the Chinese spy balloons and how it would affect American and Chinese relations. Responses were heard from various people. Roisin Keenan raised the fact that we have just elected our first female president in a long time. Responses were heard from Dermot Hamill and President Emeritus Daniel McCormick. The President's questions then took place, sadly. Jacqueline Bonner asked the President what she had for breakfast. The President had toast with butter. Truly adventurous they are in the McSparran household. Really are. Dermot Hamill asked the President if she would condemn the French. The President said she was scared she'd get cooed if she didn't, so she said, and I quote, "I condemn the French," and there was much rejoicing in the House. Yes. Truly the people's president. Yes. Ryan Hoey HLM asked the President if she would emulate Mrs. Thatcher as President. The President said she would run for 11 years in a row. Roisin Keenan asked the President about some society that no one's heard of, and some formal, I don't know, we shouldn't go into too much detail. Maybe you could tell us about it in the pub. Anyways, where have I gone? And Sam Hazlitt asked the President if she knew who Gillian Simmons was. I should note that Google Docs wanted me to change "is" to "was" in that sentence, implying that he no longer is alive, which I hope is not the case. The President noted that his birthday was the same as the AGM. I don't know, I didn't bother to look up. Anyways, Dermot Hamill then rashly proposed honorary life membership for Julian. In the ensuing vote, there were 17 ayes, 1 nay, for shame, and 0 alliance voters. Matt Walker then asked the President to do an impression of Julian. The President called him an old man and calls of shame were heard. Noel Barnley asked the President to estimate how many MLAs the Green Party would win in future General Assembly election. The President correctly predicted none. After the President's question, a vote of prior opinion was held. There were 8 votes for aye, 28 votes for nay, and 10 alliance voters, so the opposition had it. First in the proposition was Sam Hazlitt. Indeed. Who addressed the members of the House and children. He began by giving context to the economic situation in Britain in the 1970s, noting the only thing that was produced was Austin Allegros. I don't know if that's what you're into, Mr. President Emeritus, that's all right. Successive governments felt that it was a mission to manage the decline of the country, and I really cannot make this debate sound interesting, I have to be honest, I couldn't even think of jokes. Sam also contrasted the approach of Liz Truss, which he noted was too quick and absent-minded. If that's a reference to something, I don't know. Anyways, he noted that the people who decry the closing of coal mines often are supporters of Extinction Rebellion. Funny that. First in the opposition was Owen McCall. He conceded that the economy was in a bad state in the 1970s. He noted that unemployment doubled under Mrs. Thatcher, which was defined as, quote, a true girl boss move, apparently. He postulated the only thing that saved Mrs. Thatcher was the Falklands War, and the UK had gone bankrupt in a prior Conservative government. Then there was a discussion about what supply side economics were. I got a bit bored and started reading a book at this point. And then there was a question that he just completely ignored, and then just went on to something about energy companies. Second in the proposition was Matt Walker. He defined Thatcherism and noted the importance of free market economics. He then emphasised that Britain had been on the decline since World War II. Personally, I would say it's been on the decline since about 1688, but that's a completely different debate. Anyways, then there was a discussion of Thatcherite economics and the fact that you can't look at it in a short-term situation. He also noted, quote, as a rich landowning Protestant, he confessed that he did not like the poor that much. Second in the opposition was Jacqueline Bonner. She accused the proposition of mental gymnastics. She mentioned Calvinism and the Protestant work ethic. Quite curious for an Irish American. She noted that Thatcher did not follow to the letter the economic policies of Milton Friedman and defined her as, quote, thus a disgusting centrist. Then there was a mention of hypocrisy, class war, and economic tomfoolery, for lack of a better word. Began with F for those of you without imagination there. And then I lost the will to live. Final speaker for the proposition was Ryan Hoey, HLM. He apologised to the children who'd come up from Newry for having to experience all of this. It was only just getting started. Harold Wilson closed down more mines than, and I've actually written Harold Wilson twice in a sentence, so that makes absolutely no sense what I've written down there. He added that unemployment rates briefly rose before falling again, and noted an interesting anecdote about, I think it was his grandfather, related to why British Leyland was pretty useless. Final speaker was Aidan Moran. This is, prior to the debate, he had claimed that inflation didn't matter, and then he stated, and I quote, the economy does not exist. This coming from somebody who's paid quite a bit of money by the Students' Union. This provoked considerable discussion from the House, and I didn't note down anything else that was further said. Questions were heard from various people in the House who I didn't note down. Following the debate in questions like the vote on speakerability occurred, there were 20 votes for the proposition, 23 votes for the opposition, and 2 abstentions, so the opposition narrowly had it. May I take the minutes as read?
Aye.
Thank you, James, for that. And with that, we move on to private members' business. So basically, anything you've heard this week in the news, or you just really want to hear the House's opinion of, you can raise your hand and ask the House about it. So I'll go to... Okay. Please state your name for the minutes.
So, as all of you know, I am obviously a very strong right-winger. Please, that that's not even a bit. But I decided today to scout out the opposition and see who was running in this year's student union elections. And largely, that was entirely without any sense of hope. They were all very shit. But then, I stumbled across Ronnie Lynch. Ronnie Lynch is one of our presidential candidates who has promised to end tyranny at Queen's. Alongside an image of Milhouse's father in The Simpsons. He's also committed to promote nicotine and racism, and has said that he has a cute dog who will become the new mascot. Ronnie is my hero. I would die for Ronnie. And anyone that does not vote for Ronnie will be facing the Armalite ballot box of South Armagh in 1981. So I would urge the House to vote for Mr. Lynch and make him our next SU president.
I want to say that the Literific can't formally condone any candidates.
Actually, you didn't say that there cannot formally condone acts of violence.
Anybody to respond to that? State your name for the minutes.
We shouldn't endorse the SU, but we should definitely vote in SU elections because the society will get money if more of our members vote for in the elections than anyone else. So please do vote if you are a member. Secondly, I think that Ronnie Lynch is the best human being to ever exist. If I had a vote,
official capacity,
I'm not speaking in official capacity. I particularly like his policy of promoting nicotine. It's something I believe strongly in, I'm passionate about. I like the fact that in his manifesto it says that or in this piece that he wrote for Queen's Radio, it said that he will try and get vapes as well in the SU shop, but if he can't, he'll just settle for cigarettes.
I think you should read his statement, man. I have it here.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Here it is. As to my most controversial aims, many will question why I intend to promote smoking, and it comes down to one simple and reasonable fact: it's just dead nice in it. It's like a Guinness for your lungs, and no student uses that. Spar sell those lovely cigarella ones that are leaf wrapped. But the closest Spar is all the way up Botanic, and that's a long walk for our weary legs. And we have a Spar in the student union anyway, so just like sell some fakes. It won't hurt anyone. Ideally, it would also sell cigars, and for inclusivity, vapes. But I'll settle for just cigarettes if needs be. Also, it makes us look dead cool, like a cool stoic French person, even though it would mean we would smell like French people, but that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Anything that isn't Ronnie Lynch? Please state your name for a minute.
Let's go.
Luke Anthony Patrick McGuire. I just wonder what everybody's thoughts were on the destruction of MS-13 down El Salvador. They're all now in a beautiful mega prison that each of them is a 100-man cell that has 80 beds and only 2 toilets. Which makes me extraordinarily happy because the current president is sitting at, I think it's a 96% approval rating. And I love this. I just want to see harsher things happen to gangs like this. I don't know what your thoughts were on gangs and all that things.
Please state your name for the minutes.
Noah Barnley. I think it's great that they're in there. Personally, I'm glad because now the competition is gone. So my favourite drug dealers, the CIA, can really get big.
Curious, Will?
To be honest, like it kind of goes to this weird thing about prison and kind of like what is justice and what is the goal of the prison system. Because essentially, we do know from research that people typically are less likely to reoffend if they have essentially systems in prison to get them out of crime, which makes absolute sense. But it's not implemented in a lot of countries, purely because of this aspect that you said yourself of sometimes we just want to see them suffer.
Sometimes.
No, but that's why it's a very interesting point that's not really raised a lot, is that typically systems, I believe there's a system in Norway or something, round about there, where essentially they have more nicer prisons that are more about kind of getting them back from poverty and a life of crime that work way better than ours, by the way, and cost way less because they don't reoffend. But we still have our current system, and we still have systems like that because, my God, we just want to see them suffer sometimes.
You. Thanks.
Yes. Dermot Hull. I think 2 points on the El Salvador situation. First of all, 100 men, 80 beds. Sounds like my kind of Friday night. Please don't keep that for one. 100 men. So the one point is the president of El Salvador is fucking mental. Let's talk time. He invested loads of country finances in Bitcoin. And at one point he changed his Twitter bio to El Dictador de El Salvador, which actually means the dictator of El Salvador. And no one batted an eye. It was like, oh, that's great. And that was just like 5 minutes on the internet, and no one said anything ever again. But we see 96% approval ratings because he's fucking mental. And I think we need more mental managers here.
I'll go you, then you, and then new point. Okay.
I'm allowed to say.
Are you?
Is technically allowed to say, but I don't know. Right to say yes, but
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I should
Right
actually
on what you
the point
said.
of the president. He also amended his avatar on Twitter to have himself laser eyes.
Are you saying the president of El Salvador is Homelander?
He did that to the nation's finances, sir. On the issue of prison reform, I'd like to propose my favourite form of prison proposed by Jeremy Bentham, which was the Panopticon, which is basically where it's a big circle and you have a watchtower, and the prisoners don't know if they're being watched, so they all have to be good or else they don't get food. I think honestly prison reform, that's probably the best model. Using that in debates. There's also the giant tower, all the rest of us are being watched.
I shall confiscate the payments.
No. I just wanted to say, the head of this prison, new mega prison, said to these men as they were going in, I want you to know you will never see any of your families again. You will not be rehabilitated because you will not be leaving. So, and this was in response to multiple witness accounts of these people playing football with decapitated people's heads, kidnapping young girls for I don't need to go on why. So I have zero remorse for the horrific things that hopefully happen to these people in a very well run, beautiful facility.
Any new points of private members' business? Kira?
In response to that, in response to that, in seriousness though, like there's people who do that, then there's people who are in there for, let's face it, not crimes that are.
Only in a certain position.
Oh, okay.
I was told.
Okay, my bad.
Any actual new points?
So, this is a nerdy interest of mine, but this week we had the deal between the UK and EU on the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is everyone's favourite topic of conversation. So, I don't know if people have any idea what's in it, most people probably don't. But I just think it was, obviously the DUP was still waiting to see which way they will go, whether they'll go back into Stormont as a result of this deal. But I mean, I don't think it goes as far as what I would ideally want in the perfect world, but I think it does restore the balance in the protocol, because I think the original protocol basically shafted unionists to pacify nationalists, and the New Deal doesn't go all the way back and piss off nationalists, but it kind of strikes the right balance between ensuring that there is a balance in the agreement between the two, which is what the UK government's position is under the Good Friday Agreement, is to try and ensure that neither community feels alienated.
Madam President?
I think you're right, Ryan. I think we need to strike a nice balance, and I think the best way to strike balance is under a new United Ireland. I think it's probably the best way forward. I I did see a very interesting clip of Rishi Sunak though stating that we're so lucky, us in the north, because we have access to not only England's market, but we also have access to the free market, EU market, and I just laughed, because was that not England prior to Brexit?
Yeah.
It's a bit ironic, but...
Okay, yeah.
I think a really good point from Rashi, we do need to be United Ireland under His Majesty the King.
Oh,
I want to point out, while the protocol may have shafted unionists in the first round, similarly that sounds like a good Friday night.
That's going in the minutes.
Please state your name for the minutes.
Noel Barney. This point's kind of similar in that it came out of the UK government. I was wondering if the House had paid any attention to Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages leaking, in which Boris Johnson only introduced lockdowns for schools because he didn't want to have an argument with Nicola Sturgeon. The Tory minister said that people in unions just don't want to work. Like very, very Tory things you would imagine them saying, and then they do say them. I was just wondering what everyone thought of that.
Yes, I thought you might. Sam Hazelwood. I think that it was, I would say shocking, but I don't think anyone was in the least bit shocked or surprised in any way. There was, I think it was 65,000 COVID deaths in the UK were in care homes. So we worked out last night at the pub, as we like to work out statistics of deaths. It was the equivalent of Matt Hancock going into every home in Portadown, Craigavon and Lurgan and killing every man, woman and child there. If this is something that he can live with, then whatever. But I just find it quite amusing that he set up his own television company, which is going to be the shortest lived thing. I just find that great that everybody's going to hate him even more than they did in the first place, and I just think that if something isn't brought against him with that, it's something desperately wrong.
Anything else? Oh. Please state your name for the minutes.
Daniel Todd. I think that it's all well and good as looking back now through these WhatsApp messages, but there is a significant lack of context behind them, I think. And also just on your point there about the going into care homes, you know, it's been there's a difference between the clinical advice and actually being able to deliver what the clinical advice is. And I think during the COVID, I don't think that was possible. I think it would have been unfair to have expected that when it's clear that we just did not have the capacity for that. And I think for us to look back and, you know, I think to make the assumption that it was possible is about as fanciful as United Ireland. So.
I'll take 2 more responses to this. Okay. Hoodie, please state your name for minutes.
Personally, I think implementing policy to avoid narco and Nicola Sturgeon is about the most reasonable thing Boris Johnson did. It just seems like something people would want to get the narco with.
One more response. Haven't heard from you tonight.
I think, frankly, it's quite shocking that the UK government says these problematic things in private instead of just saying it in public in front of the camera and put on Spotify and YouTube and everywhere else the way we do in this society. But the most interesting thing I saw about it was that these messages were given to Israel Oakeshott, who is a journalist, if I can use that word. And I saw someone on Twitter that said it was like choosing between Matt Hancock and Israel Oakeshott is like choosing between Iran and Iraq in the war. It was very sad. Somebody had to win.
Okay, so that's everything on private members' business, and now we move on to President's questions, where somebody crossed out 5 minutes and wrote 30 minutes here. You haven't tricked me. I know it's 5 minutes to ask me whatever you want. So
It's going to feel like 30 minutes for the
I'm going to go. You first. State your name for minutes, please.
I was Rory McSparn. I just want to know, will you vote for Ronnie Lynch?
You know what? I actually probably will.
Will you nominate Ronnie Lynch for HLN?
No, please don't. That's a game.
Honorary life McSparn.
No.
It's not membership. No more HLMs.
Yes.
We're done with HLMs. Madam President.
There's a ticket sale starting. It's not advertising because I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. It's the Farmers Society, that's right. Are you going to that? And would you recommend others?
Do have a ticket for it. I also am going to get a ticket once the payment thing is out for the Literific formal on the 27th of March.
Noah Barnley. So, in light of last week's question that I asked you, I want to ask you one in a similar vein. After the next general election, how many seats do you think the Conservatives are going to have?
Same answer.
Same answer.
More than the SLP.
Yeah, slightly more than the Greens, I guess.
This is generous.
Madam President, we've got a lot of new members here tonight, and I'd like to first of all say my welcome to them, but I'd also like to ask, in the presence of our grand new members of the House, will you condemn the French?
Yeah! I condemn the French. What is the French society's decided to go man in blue hoodie at the back, please state your name for the minutes.
So I was last here about a month ago. Since then, it would appear that the rule on swearing is gone, and the concept of political neutrality has been completely abolished. My question is, what the fuck happened?
I think that they're just LARPing. And as for the swearing, I don't notice it until it's too late, and then I'm banging the gavel after they've already said it.
No, just shut them up for 5 seconds every time they swear.
What is that when you stop hitting them with
No. What you do is speak the gavel and I will demonstrate. Give me the gavel. Give me the gavel.
Is that a second? Do I have to do it?
Right, I will demonstrate what you should do. Every time you swear, this happens. It's not nice, so don't swear.
Why were you young?
Okay, any other questions? I'll go Ryan.
What did you have for breakfast?
Oh, I wanted to take a leaf out of an old president's book and have Weetabix, and they were really boring, and I didn't really enjoy it that much.
Are you trying to Weetabix?
What did he say?
Yes! Say yes!
Yes.
Will you condemn the French Green Party?
Do they have one? What is green in
They
French?
barely exist.
Yes, they do. Fair.
I would have a PDF, that's something like here.
I know, but there's no green left.
Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Yes.
Green
Oh my god. Why not? You.
Why do you get poor?
I'm not. Tiernan, what do I do?
It's not because she's a French man. It's not because she's a man with a Protestant. There's other reasons.
I'm allowed to be
I don't hate the purse. I have one more question.
If you ever manage to achieve 96% approval rating within the Literific, will you declare yourself a dictator and embezzle all society funds in Bitcoin?
If I get a 96% win of the Literific, if I get,
approval rating.
I think I got 100% approval rating last time. Anyway, that's it for President's questions. So, can we move on to the vote of prior opinion? So, if you believe that you do think that nuclear energy should be embraced as a renewable, please raise your hand and say aye.
1, 2, 3.
I got 19. 19? I got 19. And if you do not think that nuclear energy should be embraced as renewable, please raise your hand.
That's your actual opinion, and I have evidence.
No, we did not. Okay.
I started a conversation in their house where they
And if you don't have an opinion on the matter or haven't just made your mind up yet, please raise your hand now. Is 8?
Well, don't worry, I'm giving the specific thing you say.
Could I do it with my opinion?
So, on the question of whatever this motion is that I
It's like to embrace nuclear energy.
whatever the ginger said. Anyway. There were 19 votes.
Beg your pardon?
7 votes for nay, and 8 now be lost. The proposition / opposition had it.
Okay. So before the debate begins, I'm just going to run through some rules for any new people who might understand how a debate works. So everybody here has 7-minute speeches. The first and last minute are protected time, meaning you can't POI them. And basically, a POI is when you put up your hand and say point of information because you want to tear down a point in their speech. You do it in like 10 seconds, anything longer than that, we start banging the gavel and tell you to hurry up. So only the 5 minutes in the middle can you POI. Please no barracking, meaning if you want to ask a POI, wait another like minute before you ask another one. Yeah, and that is everything. And with that, I would like to announce Jack Sands to open the proposition.
Hello everybody. So, this House would embrace nuclear energy as a renewable. I think tonight's debate is probably best put in the way of part of a much larger debate, and that is our fight against climate change. Nuclear energy is by far and away better as a power source, better and safer and more efficient as a power source than any fuel that we use at the moment. Coal, oil, gas. The big three. The big three that lobbyists will have you believe are our only way of powering our homes. The big three that money is laundered through. The big three that we're sort of pigeonholed into. I'll bring up firstly the human cost of these fossil fuels that we use today. Per terawatt hour, which is enough power to fuel 150,000 people for a year, coal is accountable for approximately 25 deaths. Oil, 18, gas, about 3. In comparison, nuclear energy is accountable for only 0.03 deaths for the same amount of energy. I raise that this is an ethical issue that we need, for the sake of saving lives at the very least, to switch to nuclear power. Nuclear power is far more energy dense than our current use. Coal is the one I'm going to use. It is literally over 1 million times more energy dense per kilogram than coal. This would reduce the number of mines we have to supply. This would reduce the number of power plants we have to build, maintain, to power the same number of homes in our communities. I have a lot to get through. I'm probably going to not take any POIs. The whole idea of we have these coal power plants already. The idea of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I raised to you that it is a broken system. I raised to you that it's an ethically immoral system that we are currently forced to live under. We don't need coal anymore. Coal fueled our industrial revolution. Coal fueled all of these scientific breakthroughs, all of these, let's say, social breakthroughs. But we don't need to stick to it. It's a method of power of the past. We need to be looking towards the future. In terms of carbon footprint, as I said at the start, we're battling climate change here. Coal, per kilowatt hour, forces about 1,000 grams of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Gas 450 grams. For nuclear power, that's somewhere in the region of 15 grams. It slows it down. It doesn't fix the problem. We're still pumping out carbon dioxide. It doesn't fix the problem, but it certainly gives us time to invest in other renewable energy sources as well. I'm not saying that nuclear power is the be-all and end-all, is the key. We'll get nuclear power and all of our issues are solved. But what I am saying is that in tandem with the likes of hydroelectric, the likes of wind power, of solar power,
On that point?
no POI, sorry, it will be able to help us along. It's far quicker to get up and running as well. I'm sure, as our friend from Scotland here will show, wind farms take up a lot of space. They take a lot of time, a lot of money to set up. They take a lot of maintenance, a lot of hands. A nuclear power plant, by contrast, is one building. It would remove the need for 5 coal plants in favour of one plant. It's a far safer working environment. It's a far cheaper working environment. Simply a better working environment. The efficiency of the fuel I've brought up before, far more energy dense. We could get rid of so many of these coal mines that we don't necessarily need anymore. The human rights violations of coal mines have well shown in the past. Now, I understand there aren't many, as our debate last week I think showed, there aren't many coal mines left because of Mrs. Thatcher, at least in the UK, but uranium mines, plutonium mines, we can fuel the same number of power plants with one mine. We very much could. In terms of pollution, fission byproducts, not necessarily fusion, we're not getting all the fusion yet, but fission byproducts can be much more effectively, safely and cheaply stored than those produced by coal, oil and gas. Coal, oil and gas produce carbon. They shoot them into the atmosphere. There's nothing we can do there. Carbon capture really is shown not to work. It's like throwing a fish a bone, or a dog a bone. It doesn't really work. I'm aware, James, I'm aware. Geological disposal. Now, this is going to sound bad. We bury it underground. That's how it's been done for centuries. But we don't have to waste the money on digging a large pit. We have silos. We have missile silos that aren't in use anymore. That's actually how the US deals with a lot of their nuclear fissile waste. We bury it underground. It has no geological effect when it's put away. We can leave it there. It doesn't do anything. It sits and it waits. It's far cheaper, more effective and easier to do than coal. My opponents tonight will bring up the Chernobyl, Fukushima disasters. Their arguments will be based mainly on fear, I hope. Their arguments will be based mainly on fear. I brought up that the human cost of nuclear energy is far lower than coal, gas or oil. That includes the disasters at Chernobyl and Fukushima. In fact, we found that at the site that is Chernobyl, we found a resurgence. We found a resurgence in life. We found deer coming back to the area. We found dogs. Wow. This proves this proves that a nuclear disaster is actually better for the environment. The likes of Jeff Bezos running rampant. Now that's sort of the end of my points. I'd like to thank you all for listening.
I, for one, too, welcome a nuclear disaster.
Yes,
Can we have a second round of applause for what was a brilliant meeting? Open opposition.
Good evening, everybody. The growing dispute over nuclear energy is the defining climate debate of our time. Over the course of this evening, I have no doubt that the opposition will make many convincing arguments. Some will, yeah, maybe not some, but not all of them, but some of them. They'll no doubt highlight the support of the scientific community, and perhaps even that the severity of the climate crisis demands this as a solution. Or the members here tonight may even be treated to some stories saying how Chernobyl could have easily been avoided if it wasn't in the hands of the Russians. However, I would remind you that we're not here to debate which energy source is most economical, which energy source is most reliable, or which energy source is most efficient. This is a debate over whether this House should embrace, and I would repeat the word embrace, nuclear energy. So for this, it would require us to imagine a world in which nuclear power had been adopted across the board. Perhaps... Oh no, wait! No. Perhaps this is a world of abundant energy, powering our cars, hospitals and homes, all the while stemming the tide of climate change. Unfortunately, tonight I'm going to talk about a different world. A world which also saw the prolific spread of nuclear energy. A world in which the words nuclear proliferation are on the screens of every media outlet, the lips of every politician, and the leaflets of every aid agency. A leading Cambridge physicist, David Mackay, said, "I'm not trying to be pro-nuclear, I'm just trying to be pro-arithmetic." Well, there are many aspects to nuclear arithmetic. Hiroshima, 135,000. Nagasaki, 80,000. No, I won't be taking any except later on. These were the results of weapons 60 times less powerful than what we currently have at our disposal, in cities far smaller than the current average. If we are to truly embrace nuclear energy, that means embracing the risks, the consequences, and above all the responsibility for what might happen in countries less politically stable than our own. The first reactor-generated electricity was from a plant in Chicago, when a group of scientists, led by Enrico Fermi, initiated the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. This happened on December 20th, 1951. This is a good place to start. This was a time of renewal, a time of reconstruction, and the dawn of a new liberal world order. Picture now if we'd incorporated a worldwide energy policy that had adopted nuclear energy across the board, and in the spirit of this new beginning, the technology was shared freely, and plants were built, and it was embraced in every country. It's an interesting image. However, there would have been some darker shades to this story. Since December 20th, 1951, there have been 285 wars, 475 coups, and 50 instances of failed states. While possessing nuclear technology does not immediately equate to having nuclear weapons, it does open the door to the possibility. The UK itself opened its first power station under the slogan "Atoms for Peace" at Calder Hall. This site was, however, not a civil power station. It was built to produce plutonium for nuclear weapons. The energy it produced was a byproduct to power the rest of the site. Out of those many conflicts that did occur, if a nuclear weapon had been detonated in even one of those countries, the entire energy programme would have been completely negated. No. Unfortunately, those places that would benefit from nuclear energy are the most at risk. Energy poverty too often goes hand in hand with other forms of state poverty, and it is a sad fact of our world that those who struggle for the least resources are often the most at war. Some may argue this new abundance of energy would cure some of that poverty, thereby reducing the need for conflict, and I would believe the same if it were not for what nuclear technology can lead to. If all a country has known for the last 50 years is conflict, the introduction of nuclear capabilities is not only irresponsible, it is iniquitous. The Non-Proliferation Treaty has gathered the signatures of 190 countries, the general consensus being that we don't need more nuclear states, and in the hands of some of today's world leaders, I'm afraid nuclear energy is a bridge to just that. Some proponents of nuclear energy may disagree with my assessment, pointing to the so-called weapons-proof microreactors, such as Hyperion or NuScale, perhaps claiming that the use of low-enriched uranium makes them difficult to weaponize. Those people would be wrong. Once you can create low-enriched uranium, you can create weapons-grade uranium, and even if this capacity is lacked, a conventional explosion with radioactive elements is still a grave cause for concern. Even in nations we once deemed safe enough to run on nuclear power, such as Ukraine, unexpected conflicts can find a way to endanger these plants. In essence, there are two possible worlds here. One, an energy-rich utopia, where the fission of atoms creates energy that powers our cities, fuels our progress, and creates a world that will be safe, energy safe for generations to come. The other is a less pleasant vision, where initially small-scale wars end in devastating destruction, where the genocide of those who reside in a particular geographical area becomes all too easy, and the number of radioactive zones slowly rises, whether by accident or intent. The difference between these two nuclear worlds is within the touch of a button. Whether that button launches a missile, misplaces a fuel rod, or sets off a dirty bomb, it is only one press away. So in conclusion, I would ask this House not to embrace nuclear energy, as out of the two worlds I've detailed, is the chance of one truly worth the risk of the other? Vote with the opposition. Thank you.
We did a second round of applause to what was a very good maiden speech.
It's not your first speech, you have to take the away.
And I'd like to welcome a second college.
Are there rats in this speech?
We'll find a way. China, Guatemala, Indonesia, Cuba, Belgium, Congo, Dominican Republic, Peru, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Lebanon, Grenada, Libya, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Iran, Panama, Iraq, Kuwait, Somalia, Bosnia, Iran, Sudan, Afghanistan, Yugoslavia, Serbia, Afghanistan again, Libya, Iraq and Syria again, Somalia and Iran again. Those are all the places that the US have been directly or indirectly involved in conflicts with since 1946. All of those places where the biggest nuclear superpower in the world hasn't dropped any nukes. They will feed you fear. Fear of nuclear war. Fear of nuclear war when we haven't bloody seen any. We had a Cold War where we were so afraid of it. We were so afraid the two biggest powers in the world were going to go to war, but they didn't because they were afraid the other was going to drop a fucking nuke on them. Fear, 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 fear. It's all they have because, as in the words of Christopher, they don't have fucking science on their side. You can talk about the deaths from all of this nuclear shit that's going on, but, as we all know, 81 million people have died directly from fossil fuel pollution since 1965. No. The US has been the majority of wars since 1945 and yet hasn't been dropping nukes anywhere. But what is it you want us to do? Not allow unstable countries to have nuclear power. So it's okay for us to have it. It's okay for Britain to have it and France to have it and all of the good Western white powers to have it. But no, let's not trust the East. Let's not trust the global South. Let us keep let us keep everyone under the jackboot of the West because that's what they want. I say in the words of the Lord Carson. As I say to my Ulster friends, with sincerity and solemnity, do not be led into any such false line, because what they offer you is fear. Fear, fear, fear. It is all Christopher has offered you. No. Yes.
Yeah, let's go! Carson, known for his love of the global South and all things foreign.
Actually, interestingly, on that actually, Carson actually very much focused on ensuring that there was safety and security in the global south, particularly in the likes of Egypt, and is why he actually decried the League of Nations. So fuck you and you're criticising Carson. But those 81 million deaths from fossil fuel pollution, that does not include those killed by mercenaries involved in maintaining up oil pipelines. It doesn't include those that die in coal mines. It doesn't include those that have died in coal accidents and coal plants. It doesn't include, yes.
Would you condemn the French for having nukes?
Fucking right I would. They want to stop global development, they want to stop economic development, they want to stop anything that would allow the rest of the world to catch up with us in the West. Because they can't be trusted apparently, they can't be trusted. Go for it.
Okay, I did actually decide when I was writing that I said politically unstable countries. You yourself inferred that I was there talking about the global south and other nations. I only never said politically unstable, so you took from that what you will. Also, I said Also, I said Ukraine was a country that I deemed to be stable personally until a few years ago. It runs largely on nuclear power.
Shut up.
Yeah, and I put that in it as well, so there you go.
So the countries that largely don't have nuclear weapons and the places that don't have nuclear power, which is the majority of them in the global south, so those ones that you inferred are politically unstable, because those are the ones that don't have nuclear power, therefore being the global south. But no, they can't be trusted. They can't be trusted to develop their economies. They can't be trusted with clean energy. They can't be trusted with any of this, because that's what Christopher wants. He wants to make sure that we all keep them under our jackboot. He wants to make sure that only us in the West have it, because they can't be trusted. Fear, fear, fear. That is all he wants you to have. Oh yeah. He's anti-science, apparently. The scientific community are on our side as far as Christopher is concerned. Is that a POI or are you just scratching your hand?
On that point.
Yeah, go for it.
So your accusations to the opposition that they're trying to paint it that the only safe nations. What about North Korea?
Well, North Korea are a very safe nation. The North Koreans haven't bombed any of us. Have the North Koreans done it? No. North Koreans are a very stable nation. The North Koreans don't have political intrigue. You know where has political intrigue? The Literific. Christopher wouldn't give us nuclear power. North Koreans, if you want to use the North Korean example, they have brilliant power infrastructure. They don't bomb anywhere else. They're not technically at war with us up here. They haven't bombed us. So yes, let's let the North Koreans have power. Yeah, bring up North Korea again with me, motherfucker. No, never. Can't find me. I'll go for it.
Would you be in favour of the nuclear energy of bombing North Korea to the South China Island and the ocean glows?
Just like
answer the question, Dermot. You can do it. That's the best POI I've ever fucking
Just say yes or no.
Is it with nuclear bombs?
Yes.
Oh, fuck it. We said we'd embrace it. But why should we embrace it as a renewable? Why should we? Because it's clean, because it protects our environment. While in terms of how it renews energy, there actually is the scientific research being done on using nuclear waste to develop it. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to bore you with physics. But what I will point out is it renews, it's economically renewable, it's clean, it means that we don't have to destroy our environment, which therefore promotes the renewal of our ecosystems. It means we don't have to take as much space. So if you want to talk about renewing our climate, let's talk about the fact that we could use so much more space for things like rewilding. We can make sure that we actually have a stable economy because we would be able to fund it. We wouldn't have a place like in Northern Ireland where we have an absolutely crippled electricity system. We'd be able to actually provide that within predicted time. We'd actually be able to have enough in energy in order to actually scale up our economy. So do not listen to the fear, do not listen to him, because all he wants to do is he wants to have you sit here and not actually listen to the science, which he has categorically said is on our side. So don't listen to them. Do not be led into any such false line. Ireland, north, south, east and west has suffered nothing as much as the broken pledges of British statesmen. And while Christopher the Brit may not be a statesman, what he offers you is broken pledges, empty promises and absolutely no argument but fear. So my friends, I say vote for the proposition. Do not listen to their ridiculous argument of fear, nothing but emotion. Listen to your head, listen to the science, support this motion.
Welcome Daniel McCormick, President Emeritus.
Okay.
Modern day colonizers.
Jesus Christ. For those of you who weren't there whenever we went to storm it, that'll make less sense than for the rest of you. But look, let's call that particular accusation inconclusive for now. Let's entertain for a moment that these people are not
the reprobates that they have done a damn good job of demonstrating themselves to have been so far. I just want to start actually with a couple of quotes that I got at the beginning of the evening. It was a question of, are you really against nuclear energy? And Christopher, first speaker, said, quote, after researching, this is the science that Dermot referred to earlier. Yes, I'm pro-nuclear. Kira Swale said, I am as well. And Michael McKee has mentioned, said, I want to work in this field in future. Sure, go.
I said I was pro-nuclear with an important caveat that I'm going to put in my speech.
Okay, with that in mind, before Kira tries to capitalise on your propensity to agree with the last person you spoke to, much like no one in particular. Look, these people, they're a group of climate change deniers. Simple as, at the bottom, that's all they are. And that's all they're putting forward to you. They are much like, they're in this debate for the same reasons as some Irish politicians such as Charlie Haughey or Albert Reynolds or Brian Cowan, for their reasons for engaging in politics, and that is money. These people, and I reveal this with dismay, disgust, shock and horror, they're in the pocket of the big fuel company. That's why they're here this evening. They were struggling to get anyone on side for this debate. And then the internal convener at the time rang up the big oil companies, and these three popped right out. Sure.
Are you suggesting these people hate the poor?
I am. Look, how on earth could you seriously get a group of 6 people in a room where they're going to have a vehement debate on the good value of nuclear energy, and you get 2 sides totally opposed, totally on opposite sides of this particular debate, both with what appear to be equally substantiated arguments? The science supports us, they say. We say the science supports us. Now, I believe us. But they claim they're backed up by something, and I would put to you that the only reason they're backed... No. I would put to you that the only reason they're backed up by it is because they have corporate sponsored studies brought forward by our capitalist overlords. Yes, sure. Well, no, if I make, this is a very, very important point. We need to know we need to understand the fundamental motivation of the people who are speaking to you this evening. What is our motivation? Our motivation, as you've heard, is for the best of society, for the best of humanity, and for the best of the world. We want to protect the environment. These people are only here to protect their company's bottom line. Now, if that's not a point in your mind, fair enough, but for the good moral people in this room who value at the fundamental basis, they value not only themselves, their lives, the lives of everybody in this room and everybody outside of this room, but they also value the environment for generations to come. That's our side. Embrace nuclear energy. As Jack said, nuclear energy in every form. Nuclear, full stop, good for the environment. Look, let's have a look here now. Look, at the bottom of it, what we're trying to do here is get down to a definition. It was brought up about whether or not it's renewable. It actually isn't renewable, but that's not the motion. You said it was. The motion is whether or not we should embrace it as renewable. And whenever you actually look at the difference, the efficiency difference in nuclear energy and the sort of energy that your bosses produce, it's far, far more renewable than the alternative. They've proposed no alternative. They've proposed no viable alternative for the health of the world. And that's what they're... Sure.
I propose solar.
You what?
I propose solar, yeah.
Yes, and if that was viable, at least as viable as nuclear energy, you would have said so, but you didn't, because it isn't. Now, you've put forward, there's no downsides to that, but this particular one, right, it may have a few downsides, we accept that. It's not perfect. It's not utopian. But what it is a hell of a lot better than what they're proposing. Now, look, we want you to choose the right thing. We want to offer you a future that, though not utopian, is a hell of a lot better than the future they're offering you. We do not, we reject their propaganda. We object the capitalist scum trying to seduce you in the name of their profit margin. A vote for them is a vote for death. Please don't embrace death. Please don't kill us all, and vote for your interests. Vote for nuclear energy. Vote with your morals. Vote with their morals. That's what they said. They said it, not me. Them. Sure.
Me.
Okay.
Danny, you said that we reject their motion. Would you say that we also rebuke them?
I would say that we rebuke them. Go.
First of all,
well, anyway, like I say, vote your interests. Vote for nuclear energy. Vote with your morals. Vote for your future, for your children, for your children's children. Vote for energy efficiency. Vote for a good environment. Vote the proposition. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
To close the opposition.
So it's been said in this house many times that we rebuke the French. Hence, however, this is exactly what the French were like in the 1960s.
Whoa!
Oh yeah, you were, and I'm going to explain why. So essentially, they're saying a lot of the point has been made on this side of the taxpayer should pay for it. We should do this. But will the government let them? And that's the crux of my argument tonight. Because ultimately it's revealed the cost is being unsustainable. And I'm going to basically clarify this through the story of France. Now in the 60s, France essentially embraced nuclear energy. They built tons of plants and essentially a lot of stuff happened. Everything was going great for France. They were producing their own energy, the national pride. And then Chernobyl happened. And then suddenly, because they had to open themselves up to the European market to trade this energy, they essentially opened themselves up to anti-nuclear sentiment from Germany and Austria. And then more and more people in France started to not like nuclear. No, and also what started to happen was new renewable technology. No, let me speak. New renewable technology undermined the economic viability of the industry as a whole, which caused the whole entire industry to tank. No, because I'm going to explain. Now, as a whole, its nuclear stations have to operate 24/7 to remain profitable. Now, because of Chernobyl and because of more scrutiny, what happened was this made nuclear reactors much more expensive to build. And guess what happened over the multiple decades? The government flip-flopped on the issue. Oh, do we fork about billions of euros to fund these nuclear power plants, or do we don't, because the nuclear people hate us, and at the end of the day we won't be elected. So what ended up happening was now France actually, half of France's nuclear fleet are currently offline, with France wants to reduce its nuclear output by about from 70% to 50% in the next 5 years. And this is due to a lot of costs and what ended up happening was that France's nuclear fleet, because it's too expensive to maintain, half of it isn't working. The other half is about 40 years old and needs to be updated, but guess what? We don't have the money to do that. Then what happened was they wanted to rejuvenate the nuclear energy in France, so they created something called the Flamanville APR, the crown jewel of their fleet, with a larger and safer design, supposed to be finished in 2012, 12 years too late, and 16 billion euros over budget. And this happened due to multiple reasons. A fragmented industry, Lots of the people with experience in the industry know. Shortage of staff that actually know what they're doing. You would have to train up the staff, otherwise you couldn't run it. Stringent safety protocols that were safe but too complex to build, and involving safety regulation during the building process. These issues have led to the leading energy supplier in France being 42 billion euros in debt, with the government having to fork out to keep them afloat. No thank you. There's also a cost with the storage that France are facing at the moment. So the only place in France that stores nuclear fuel is a place called La Hague. And essentially La Hague costs nearly 300 million euros a year to actually operate. And they're getting a bit of a problem because nuclear power leads to nuclear waste. And within approximately 5 years, it'll be too full to hold it. So they now have to fork out over 1.5 billion euros on another site now. So a lot of these people have said, oh, but we can recycle it. So France actually does this, but I'm going to explain how efficient it is. After being cooled in a pool for about 7 years, used nuclear fuel is separated into non-recyclable leftovers that are turned into glass, 4%. Plutonium, 1%. That creates the new nuclear fuel, so 1% of it. And also, only 40% of France's reactors can actually run this new fuel. And the reprocessed uranium, is 95%. And the uranium the uranium in the past used to be sent to Russia, because that's the only place that accepts it, for re-enrichment and return to use. But EDF stopped doing that in 2013 because it was too costly, and they had to spend so much money maintaining all these things. Yeah, sure, go for it. You.
Right. So your entire argument is based on the idea that the reason it's failed is because we haven't embraced it.
No. France did embrace it, then went, oh great, let's get all the nuclear power plants. Oh, but wait, no.
We didn't say the French meant of embrace it. We agree with you. The French are incompetent knobheads.
You're speaking about the only country in the entire world who's fully embraced it, and it's been a disaster. And what happened as well with the they're saying, 100% of the time it will be stored safely. Oh no, it's not, my friends. I'm going to tell you about the Hanford Nuclear Reservation in America. So, deemed by some nuclear experts to be an underground Chernobyl waiting to happen. Area that is away from civilization, but is an area that is prone to earthquakes and wildfires. They also want the nuclear site to be close to dams for electricity and close to a river to cool the reactors. In 2017, not the 60s, not the 80s, the EPA announced that the contaminated groundwater was flowing directly into the river. The tanks contained twice the radioactivity of what was released during Chernobyl. In 1998, they finally admitted that leakages from the tanks were significant. Now they have to clean it up, and it's costing approximately $2 billion a year for 300 years, and that's one site. Thank you very much. It's the perfect.
Well, it's my job. My society as a whole condemns the French.
Thank you, Kira. I'm going to do questions.
Everybody's bored shit.
Thank you, Kira, and thank you for everyone who spoke. Now we move on to questions from the house. So if anybody has a question,
No, we've not time for one round.
I think we have time for two. Anybody have a question for the proposition?
Let's go. What all this seemed to do was embrace the little psyop that is climate change. You yourself said all they offer you is fear.
Yes.
Yet if you look at the work of things like Bjorn Lomborg,
Really gonna go down this.
Stephen Hayward, see that the climate models are in very poor shape, and they are very poorly researched. So they are. So if you say they're offering nuclear, but you're offering a more existential threat to humanity as a whole instead of just some wanting money. So I would say that you are the worst of these, because you're a full moralist, as you yourself. You claim yourself to be a moralist for the working class, for the poor, yet you would put all the people in coal mines and jobs, all the people in these poor countries that are not developed as ourselves, that's not something that you're correct.
How is this the point you're making? I am. I'll actually stand up for this.
Whoa, there's dangerous. There's a grab
I'll stand the chair if you want me. When we get down to the bottom of it, I am making the point that there is an existential threat present here. There's actually two of them, one of which, for all of the rest of you, is climate change, that obviously is an emergency and it's something that's very significant and something that we offered a solution to, and that they, not only did they ignore, but they proposed a solution that would exacerbate it or keep the status quo to exacerbate that from. To you, especially to you, I offer a separate existential crisis. God gave us nuclear. And if we don't embrace what God is giving us, He will strike us. And you see, if I was not telling the truth whenever I say this, He would smite me now. And yet He doesn't, because there is two existential things. So that anyone who's looks away behind that applies to you also. Yes, that is the two existential things that are happening. So not only am I a full moralist in your claims in terms of the climate action and things like that, but in terms of the real morality which you and I bring out, it's going to be you and me in heaven. The rest is they're damn sinners. I'm sorry.
Opposition to respond to that, please.
They claim that nuclear is this big magic wand that magically cures us all. No, it's not going to be.
No back and forth, no back and forth.
I know, but that's what I mean. So essentially, the issue is a lot of our infrastructure cannot use nuclear energy in its current state. Our cars can't use nuclear energy. Our main transport system, a lot of our farming can't use nuclear energy. So essentially, we would still have this massive issue of carbon dioxide on their side still. So with us as well, what they ignore the fact is that people are lazy. I'm going to explain this point. If we went, oh here, let's get a load of nuclear energy and let's get a load of stuff, and politicians put their careers on the line to essentially pour billions into an issue that people don't like, what will end up happening is they'll go, do we have to spend another couple of billion on top of the thing we're already maintaining to go into renewables? No. What they'll do is they'll go, this is an easy solution that's working, and we don't want to pay for a massive cost with nuclear as well as renewables. They'll just go, right, that's us done. And then it'll get to the point where we have too much nuclear waste to cope with more leakages that countries, like the leakage that I talked about, it's currently, America's paying $2 billion a year to fix it. It'll cost approximately $660 billion to clean up one site. One. And there's going to be multiple more if you have their side.
I'm not sure because she's going to get smited if she says
Any questions for the opposition?
So in 2013 there was quite a big debate in Westminster in the UK about nuclear energy, and the government at the time, specifically the Liberal Democrats, were massively opposed to building more nuclear power stations, investing in nuclear, simply because it wouldn't be ready in a reasonable time frame. I suppose they assumed that it wouldn't be ready in their term of office. but it would have been ready by now. So do you think that if we had invested and embraced nuclear power and energy back then, that we might not be in such a bad state we are now in the cost of living crisis?
No, I just really wanted to point out that the people that managed to push through the legislation for Hinkley Point and other types of nuclear reactions were actually the Conservatives. So I feel like to the opposition here, as much as my BP superiors would not like me saying this, the Conservative Party and the proposition here seem to be very much aligned in their goals for the energy supply of the country.
Well, first of all, democracy is a great thing. There was democratically elected Conservatives, so if the Brits are so angry with the Conservatives and their nuclear policy, don't vote them in, so that's you dealt with. I mean, I think also, yes, on the Liberal Democrat issue, I mean, fuck the Liberal Democrat.
That's actually true.
Yes, because that's what it's all about. It's about embracing it. It's something that the opposition just simply decided not to touch, particularly in the last question. There was the idea that because it hasn't been done properly in the past, we ought to start embracing it now. Had we started doing it then, we might actually be really able to embrace it now, where we would have the infrastructure, we would have the political will, we would have the scientific will, we would have the economic will, and we would be planning economy that would make use of nuclear energy properly, rather than simply sitting disingenuously and saying, oh, well, it didn't work because it wasn't done properly. What we want, and what I presume the Liberal Democrats were opposing, and what I would imagine the Conservatives were supporting at the time, was the idea of actually coming together and doing nuclear energy right, because it fucking works.
One foot in the door and one foot out the door.
Do we have any abstaining questions? Well, Brian had his hand up first. Sexism. Guilty.
I've been listening to this debate, and I think that there's been lots of great points made on either side, but I think we just need to confirm, I need both sides to confirm, hence an abstaining question. Have either of them taken any money from any energy companies, whether that be the nuclear industry or the fossil fuel giants?
Proposition to respond.
We have no money.
Opposition to respond.
Like, I'm going to be real, I have no idea who the shareholders of PwC are. So
there we go! The fucking consultants.
Is it?
No, I'm just joking, but
Okay.
Maybe I'm getting carried away.
Do we have another question for the proposition?
No.
One more.
Mine's more of an
extensive question.
Just let him do it.
No more questions.
Because he's never done anyone wrong, would you all support Bertie and Hurley basing nuclear energy?
It kind of gets to the point of the point that's been brought up a number of different times and touched on by John. It's kind of fundamental to this whole issue. Is that okay? Yes, we all agree the French are incompetent fuckers, right? And they were sitting there and they were going, right, we'll embrace this. In one hand, we'll give it all a nice big warm radioactive hug. But in the sense that they were, I was actually stand up because I want to talk to you loves then. In the sense that they were embracing nuclear energy, they were giving it a great big hug with no radiation support, right? That's what I want you to think of in terms of what the French were doing. In the same way as Bertie Ahern abides exclusively by the regulations set forth in his profession, we ought to ensure that the industry and the practices within that industry are conducted exclusively by the regulations and by the rules, because that is the nature of embracing it, is doing it properly, doing it safely, and not doing it the French way.
For their system to work, regulations have to work 100% of the time. please give me one piece of regulation that is abided by 100% of the time.
No problem.
Also,
No swearing.
see that nuclear dump site that I told you about that's currently leaking 300 gallons of waste every year. One of the tunnels that was storing the waste collapsed. This was covered up by the workers. No, you did that. I'm bringing up Trump. Trump wants to reclassify high-level waste to low-level waste, giving it less safety restrictions to lower costs. They have to work 100% of the time, which is impossible.
Okay. That wasn't about Birdie, but I think we'll move on to vote on speaker ability. So, this is not about...
I hate you now.
Let
So,
You're gonna let him speak again.
excuse me,
Him speak again.
your own flesh and blood.
Robert, take it from Right. You said no more questions, but okay. For an opposition or abstaining?
Abstaining.
You can agree.
This is an abstaining one, right? So supposedly, right, women are particularly vulnerable to the health effects of uranium production as they're twice as sensitive to radiation as men. Indigenous women suffer doubly because uranium extraction and nuclear things take place in large part in colonial areas. Blah, 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 blah. A lot of sexism going on in the industry. So I want to, there's a two-pronged thing here, so it is technically, don't yap at me, James, but it's an abstaining question. Why do you hate women and you are feminists, or are you coming to the FemSoc forum?
Opposition to respond.
Alright, okay, so yeah, that's essentially a massive issue with nuclear as well. Essentially, that is brought up. So a lot of people, so basically, nations like France and the West their citizens don't want the nuclear waste near their homes. So what ends up happening is they put it in areas where, they deem to be less important, essentially with indigenous populations and things like that. And also there have been cases where essentially the waste has been stored incorrectly and it's leaked, and essentially the gas has come up from the ground, leading to several people being more likely to be diagnosed with lung cancer and several things like that. And the more we embrace nuclear, the more of these storage sites we would have to have, the more mishaps are more likely to occur, because they cannot assure you that will never ever ever happen, because it has happened in recent terms, and that means more people will be susceptible to this.
Proposition to respond.
So, guess what else does it? Air pollution, which comes from coal mines, which comes from burning oil. So, just as bad. In the same way that, you know what else happens? If you put hydroelectric dams near places that have loads of people that can't swim, they're more likely to Women are great.
And now we're going to move on to the vote.
Spiel isn't done. So,
I'm moving on.
If you don't do things properly, and you don't store it properly, and you don't embrace it properly, then obviously it's going to hurt people more. So, what we want to do is do it safely, and we don't want to hurt women.
Okay.
Women are class.
Vote on speaker ability now. If you think that the proposition spoke best tonight, not agree with them, you just think that they spoke best, please raise your hand now. I got 22. Okay. If you think that the opposition spoke best tonight, please raise your hand now.
Be nice.
9. Yeah, he wasn't voting, he wasn't voting. If you are abstaining on the motion, you don't think either did better or they were just as good as each other, please.
Don't set our mom when you want.
Two.
Your speaker's great.
Don't.
You actually
Two.
really good.
Those two. Can we have a vote on speaker ability?
Be quiet, little man. Okay. In terms of the votes, there were 22 votes for the proposition, 9 votes for the opposition, and there were 2 stinky alliance voters. So therefore, the proposition has it.
In the QUB room,
in
the SU, we're debating the rise of AI generated art and if you regret it or not. And if you're missing me speaking because I'm president, I'm speaking on op tomorrow. So you should come. It's £5, goes to charity. Please be there. Yeah. Could the speakers please come forward for a picture and everyone else make your way to Lavery's.